When it comes to retirement, do you want to have the same old plan everyone else has? Of course not. You're unique and have your own goals and dreams. Don't be treated like a number. This is your retirement. So it's time to think differently. And you're in luck because you found the Retire Your Way podcast with Dave Lopez, founder and managing member of ILG Financial. At ILG Financial, you won't find generic run-of-the-mill plans containing the same old cookie-cutter solutions. Dave and the ILG Financial team focus on building one retirement plan at a time using their Think Differently philosophy. And that means your own comprehensive plan with customized solutions built to achieve just one goal, yours. So put on your Think Differently hat and get ready to take back control of your retirement today and for all the tomorrows to come. ILG Financial's Retire Your Way podcast was created just for you, and it's starting right now. Coming to you from the ILG Financial Studios, this is Retire Your Way, the podcast that gives you the straight talk and honest insight you need to help you achieve your financial goals through smart investing and careful planning. My name is Jeff Shade, and as always, I'm just here to ask the questions, but the words of wisdom and solid advice come from Dave Lopez, managing member and owner of ILG Financial. How you doing today, Dave?
Doing great. It's always good to be with you, Jeff, and our listeners, and another good show I've got lined up for us today.
I would agree completely. Had a chance to look over this, and I'm anxious to talk to the people about the things that are important to them in their lives and getting to and through retirement. And as always, it's very good to be with you as well. You know, if you were worried about taking a required minimum distribution from your retirement account or an inherited account this year, you're in luck. First, the CARES Act waived RMDs for 2020 so that retirees and account beneficiaries don't have to withdraw from accounts that may have lost value recently. However, if you've already taken a withdrawal in 2020 and could not roll it back into a retirement account, you now have until August 31st to do so and pay no tax on the withdrawal. After we discuss the details of this new rule, we're going to be taking a deep dive into Social Security today, why you might want to claim it at, before, or after your retirement age, how the spousal benefit works, the financial state of the program, and how your benefit can be taxed. You know, there's so many ways to claim, and the right strategy depends upon your individual situation.
You know, that's right, Jeff. And what a lot of people don't know is that the difference between the optimal and the suboptimal strategies for turning on Social Security and ways to take your RMDs is huge. And despite its importance, only about 4% of retirees claim Social Security benefits at the optimal time. Isn't that amazing? 4%. Which means most are losing out, get this, on average on over $111,000 per household in lost free money from Social Security because they filed in a suboptimal way.
Wow.
So my encouragement today is keep listening. Take some notes on the importance of this information and the rules and the claiming strategies because there's no reason to give away this free money.
I agree completely, Dave, and there are hundreds of ways to take Social Security, and finding the right one for you is an individual situation and something, of course, that you specialize in there at ILG Financial. You know, having a plan to maximize your Social Security benefits, minimize taxes, and generate retirement income is really going to be essential. And we here at ILG can help you make these complicated decisions and figure out how Social Security fits into your overall retirement plan. So call us at 540-720-5656. You can also visit us at ilgfinancial.com to sign up for a complimentary financial review so we can discuss your unique financial planning needs. Once again, that number 540-720-5656. So as I said, Dave, on the show today, we're going to be talking about what to consider when deciding when to take Social Security, the financial state of the Social Security program. I know that 2035 is an important date to remember. We'll tell you why, and Social Security claiming strategies that you should know. But first, let's discuss how the IRS is allowing rollovers for those who took RMDs in 2020. And you know, the CARES Act waived RMDs from retirement plans for 2020, but a lot of people had already taken an RMD. Now they can roll those funds back into a retirement account anytime before August 31st.
That is exactly right. The CARES Act, which did waive the RMDs for 2020, a lot of people, Jeff, are aware of that. But we have had many clients that had already taken their RMDs because they were set up on auto withdrawal scenarios, or we had already built in scenarios where we met in the first 2 or 3 months of the year. And a lot of people just do that to get the money up front in the early parts of the year. The good news is if you took an RMD for 2020, whether it was a 401k, a 403b, your IRA, whatever, if you took that RMD, you can pay it back. Now, you can do a rollover. A lot of people do rollovers, and there's a 60-day rollover period. If you took the money and you have 60 days to roll it into a new IRA, that's actually been extended to August 31st to give you more time to do the rollover. But what we're talking about is differently. We're talking about if you just took the required minimum distribution, but you want to put it back. You don't want to pay tax on it this year. You don't need it. You have until August 31st to do that. And that actually, Jeff, includes folks who in 2019 turned 70 and a half. So this, in effect, is their first RMD year. They can actually pay that money back, put it back in their account for another year, get the interest, avoid the tax this year, and delay it for a year.
Dave, does this new rule also apply to inherited retirement accounts?
It does. Normally, a lot of folks don't know this. In fact, we usually joke with folks, if they're not familiar with beneficiary IRAs, it means you don't have one. If you have one, you learn very quickly. A beneficiary IRA just means that you inherited an IRA from a parent or somebody else. And when you did, you didn't have to pay tax on that money initially, but you had to immediately start taking a small portion out. And the government tells you how much based on your age. And they're called required minimum distributions also, but they're different amounts than for regular retirees. Well, if you did take a required minimum distribution from a beneficiary IRA and you'd rather put it back, you also can put it back. You have till August 31st to do that. So I would say, get with your financial institution. If you don't have one, call us. Let us help you do that, because the secret is you want to do it right. Otherwise, you, like everything with taxes, you don't know about it till 2 or 3 years later when the government comes knocking.
That's right. Dave, how do RMDs normally work?
Well, normally, when you have a required minimum distribution, that's usually a percentage of your account value that has to be withdrawn. Remember, it's not you're losing that money. They just require you to take it out of your retirement account and pay tax on it. So let's say that you had $100,000, Jeff, and you had a 4% RMD. That means $4,000 has to be withdrawn this year from your IRA account so that you list that as taxable income. So if you're losing 20% federal and 5 state, you'll have to pay tax on that $4,000, which is about $1,000, 25%, and then do whatever you want with the other $3,000. Unfortunately, you can't then place it back in the retirement account. You can invest it or spend it. Every year as you get older, that percentage, the 4%, goes up. It's a little higher each year, and it's based on the account value, really at end of year the previous year. So that's how RMDs work. They start now at 72, but if they used to start at 70 or 70 and a half, depending on when you turn 70 and a half. If you turned 70 and a half in 2019 or before, then they started at 70 and a half or 70. If you turned 70 after 2019, they changed the date to an even 72 for everybody. So that's RMDs in a nutshell. What a lot of people don't know is there's very efficient ways to take RMDs even when you have to take them. This year you don't. That's what we're talking about. But starting next year, they pick right back up.
All right, and these are required minimum distributions. You're required to take them. But Dave, what happens if, you get busy during the holidays there and you forget a little bit and all of a sudden December 31st rolls around, it's come and gone, you haven't taken your RMD?
Well, there's a penalty. You can ask for an exclusion or an exception if you miss it, but the penalty is huge, and it is a 50% penalty if you don't take your RMD. Now, get that. That's one of many examples where you see the government doing stuff that if private industry did it, they'd literally be thrown in jail, right? A 50% penalty. So if you had a $4,000 required minimum distribution, you forgot to take it, the government would penalize you $2,000 up top, and then you'd still have to pay tax on the money you're withdrawing, which means in effect, you're going to lose about 60 to 70% of that money. So you don't want to get RMDs wrong, which is why it's very important when you get in or near retirement to be working with a retirement specialist, because one little mistake can cost a fortune moving forward. And there's easy ways to avoid that. It's that old famous phrase, I don't know what I don't know, right, Jeff? Have you heard that one?
Oh, yeah.
Right? So it's not what you know that can hurt you, it's what you don't know that can hurt you. And that's what we specialize in, is making sure our clients are protected from the don't knows.
So put a note on your calendar, and if you've got a financial planner like Dave there at ILG, I'm sure that you'll remind people to do that as well too, RMDs. Dave, why might someone want to take advantage of this rollover?
So a rollover might be a great reason to take advantage of a rollover to put the money back in to your IRA is, let's say that you don't want income this year and you don't need the money. Remember, inside your IRA or your 401k, that money is growing tax deferred. So you pull it out because you have to, but then you have to reinvest it in something else that from then on is taxed as you go. If you don't need the money, every year you delay is just another year that it's growing tax deferred. So it's just a efficient place to store the money. It's safe as relative to what you're investing in, right? But it's a tax efficient place to store the money. And for most folks, the goal is to take out as little as I am required to so it can grow as tax efficiently for as long as possible. And if that's the goal, we want to leave the money in the IRA and the 401k as long as possible.
Dave, what are some tax planning opportunities that this presents?
Well, a couple. One, let's take our example with the $4,000 RMD. You can save tax on that $4,000 this year if you put that money back in before August 31st. Otherwise, you're going to, in our example, lose about $1,000 to taxes, state and federal. So that's the big planning portion with respect to putting this money back in. Really, the bigger question, and we could do a whole podcast on this, and we've done whole webinars on this topic, is what's the overall plan for your savings buckets? What's the goal? How you invest, how much risk you take, and what types of buckets, meaning tax buckets, taxed as you go, tax deferred like IRAs or 401ks, or tax-free buckets like life insurance with cash value and Roths. You have 3 different types of taxable buckets that you can invest in. And the real question is, how much should I have in each bucket? And the answer is, it depends on what you're trying to accomplish. But you do want money in all 3 buckets. Sadly, most folks, by the time they get to us, have bought into the Wall Street and the government's narrative for the last 40 years, and they have 90% of their money stuck in one bucket, the IRA, the 401k tax-deferred bucket. And that is a huge, huge problem. And the reason it's a problem is because the deal you made with the government, Jeff, when you put your money in an IRA or a 401k, is I'm going to put this money in and you're not going to tax me today. I'm going to let it grow over 30 or 40 years. And in 40 years, when I'm going to start taking the money out in retirement, you're going to decide how much you keep, meaning the government, and I get whatever's left. Now, what I mean by that is it is an open-ended deal. The government can take whatever they want out of your IRA and 401k simply by raising the tax code, which they've done over and over again over the last 100 years.
Dave, good points that you make there, and I want to continue this conversation here in just a moment. Meantime, I want to remind people that, we aim to help you plan for your future by taking all the pieces of the financial puzzle into account and creating a financial plan that assesses all of your retirement needs, longevity, risks, and estate planning goals. There really is no one-size-fits-all approach to financial planning. We're going to work with you here at ILG to find an approach that aims to accomplish your long and short-term goals while minimizing taxes. So if you'd like to talk about minimizing taxes, if you'd like to talk about any aspect of your retirement plan, I highly encourage you to give us a call here at ILG Financial. That number 540-720-5656, 540-720-5656, and ask for your complimentary, no-cost, no-obligation financial plan. And, this is unlike a lot of these, shows and people that you hear on the radio and podcasts and so forth. When you call into those organizations, you'll get someone else, but you really rarely get the person that you hear on the radio. When you call into ILG Financial, of course, someone will answer the phone other than Dave, but you'll get to talk to Dave. Once again, if you'd like to talk to Dave, the very guy you hear on the radio, call 540-720-5656. Or you can find out more about the firm online. I highly encourage you to do that by going to ilgfinancial.com. Dave, let's continue to talk about these tax minimization strategies. In the earlier segment there, I heard you mention the word Roth, and that always piques my interest a little bit. How can retirees use a Roth IRA?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it's a little different depending on where you are in your life. For example, if you were talking about these retirees, the folks usually listening to our show, your kids and your grandkids that are in their 40s, their 30s, and their 20s, my advice, and I would call them this afternoon and say, I want to make sure if your company gives you the option for a Roth 401k, or if you're using IRAs, switch to a Roth IRA instead. That is paramount. It's the number one move they can make at this stage to dramatically impact their retirement. And here's why. You've got to make a bet, and so do your kids and grandkids. And the bet's going to be, do I think taxes are going up or going down between now and when we retire? Well, I've yet to meet anyone who thinks they're going down. And we've got mountains of data that are very convincing that there's nowhere for them to go up, and not just go up, but go up dramatically. Some government experts say in order to get a handle on the government debt that we have now and just start to get a hold based on our current spending, taxes, and I'm not just talking about your federal income tax, I'm talking about every tax we pay across the board would have to double. Now, obviously, that's almost ridiculous, right? That's not going to happen. So what it tells us is we've got a monumental problem, and at a minimum, taxes are going to go up and go up significantly. Now, here's why that's so important, Jeff. If taxes go up, the whole premise that makes a 401k and an IRA a good investment is reversed. Now it couldn't be worse. What I mean by that is you're taking a tax deduction today in what might be the lowest tax rate you're ever in again in your life, letting the money grow tax deferred, taking it out 30 years later in retirement at a much higher tax rate. Now, the best way I can explain that is imagine, Jeff, that you're a farmer and it's right around the Great Depression, and you're going out, you just bought your seed for $100 to seed your entire, 10-acre farm to plant and hopefully have a great harvest and bring in money for you and your family. Well, the government needs money, so what they've decided to do is they send IRS agents around to all the farms to give them a special pay now deal. So you've got your seeds that you just paid $100 on, you're starting to go out and spread them all over your 10 acres, and this IRS agent walks across the field and he says, Jeff, I've got a deal for you. The government needs money, so we're going to offer you the option to tax you on that $100 that you paid for your seed today. And in return, we'll get taxes today. But when your harvest comes in, whatever you make off that harvest, you don't have to pay tax on. Or do it the old-fashioned way. You can plant the seed. I'm not going to tax you on the $100, but when that harvest comes in, I'm going to tax you on every penny you make from all of your vegetables in the harvest. Which would you take, Jeff?
Well, David, I'd rather be taxed on the seed, the $100, of course.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's what's going on with your retirement accounts. If you're betting taxes are going up in the future, then the argument would be the tax rate you're in today is likely the lowest tax rate you will ever be in again in your life. So why not pay the tax now on the smaller amount, let it grow tax deferred, whether it's 5 years or 50 years, and then take it out tax-free, the much larger amount down the road. So the younger folks absolutely want to be in any tax-free vehicle, and there's only three: a Roth 401k, a Roth IRA, and specially designed LIRPs, that's called LIRP. They're life insurance retirement plans. They're strategies that are funded by very specially designed cash value life insurance. And they've been very popular in history. And then as taxes got lower, they became less prominent because of the huge tax savings were less important. As taxes start to go up, it's very likely you're going to see these specially designed retirement strategies funded by tax-efficient life insurance maybe becoming one of the main key retirement strategies for all folks moving forward. It's happened before and it's going to happen again.
So, Dave, if someone wants to get in there and talk to you a little bit about tax minimization, I would imagine that you have a lot of strategies, including tax diversification strategies that you could discuss with people, right?
We absolutely do, and it's the biggest unknown secret that could be costing folks millions down the road. Is there are plans available today, and the sooner we put them in place, the more money you can save. But we can literally build out plans for folks that could retire on $100,000 to $120,000 a year in income and not be taxed a penny on it. Get that, not one penny in federal income tax if you put it together right. Now, even if in your case we have to pay a little bit of taxes and you're not in a completely 0% tax bracket, what if we can get you $100,000 to $150,000 in income and overall you're only paying maybe 7 to 10% tax on that money instead of 25 and 30? The point is here, you're going to see a paradigm shift in investing and financial planning over the next 3 to 5 years, and it will only escalate after that. And the paradigm shift will be this. Moving forward, the number one thing will not be getting the best rate of return on your investment, which is basically what everyone focuses on and has focused on the last 30 years. We always want a good rate of return, but that will quickly and already is becoming secondary to a tax-efficient bucket that you're investing in. Because frankly, it doesn't matter if you're earning 7% if you're going to lose 50% of it to taxes. Right? But if we can earn just 6% or even 5% in a bucket that's tax-free, you're going to come out at the end of the day with more money. So it's about tax efficiency now, first, and secondly, rate of return. And the sooner people understand that, the better off they will be in retirement. We can help by mapping out and showing you exactly how different strategies will turn out 5 years from now, 10 years from now, or 20. But you have to take the time to come in, have an analysis done, and let us build out a personal plan for you so you can make an educated decision on how you want your future to look.
Well, these are unprecedented times, Dave, and as you said, the first priority of a lot of people in the past decade or so has been chasing returns. Never a good idea to chase a return, but that's what people did. Taxes, well, they were always low, and people thought that they were going to be low until this pandemic hit. And now it seems that things are reversed a little bit, so taxes go to the top of the list. If you'd like to find out more about tax minimization strategies, how you can save on those, once again, as Dave has said, and we've talked about here in this podcast, Dave is offering a no-cost, no-obligation financial plan to talk about your tax situation and to help minimize that. Once again, the number to get yours, 540-720-5656. And, of course, peruse this website here, ilgfinancial.com. Dave, out of time for this particular podcast. I know that we promised people that we would be talking about Social Security and really apologize for that. Sometimes we get on a topic and it really bears fleshing out a little bit, and that's what we did on this one. So I promise in our next podcast, we're going to be talking all about Social Security, and we invite you to join us for that one. For Dave Lopez, I'm Jeff Shade. Have a great day. Thank you for joining us. We'll talk to you again next time with another edition of Retire Your Way. The information provided is for educational purposes only and is not intended as investment advice for any individual or entity. All information contained herein is believed to be from reliable sources. However, we make no representation as to its completeness or accuracy. The views presented today are those of Dave Lopez and not necessarily represent the views of AlphaStar Capital Management, LLC. The opinions expressed are subject to change without notice and do not constitute financial, legal, or tax advice. Please consult your financial professional before executing any financial strategy. Investment advisory services offered through AlphaStar Capital Management, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. SEC registration does not constitute an endorsement of the firm by the Commission, nor does it indicate that the advisor has attained a particular level of skill or ability. AlphaStar and ILG Financial, LLC are independent entities.